This is Leaders in the Trenches, and your host today is Gene Hammett.
Hi, this is Gene Hammett. I am coming to you from Leaders in the Trenches. My questions to you today is, how do you lead salespeople? If you are on the front lines trying to activate them to go out there and close more deals, then you're probably already thinking to yourself, how do I lead them in this new economy and this new world? How do I engage them? Is it just paying them more commissions? Because that might not be working. I hear this all the time from leaders, so I went into some experts that are really looking at this from a different perspective, and I found Deb Calvert. Deb is just going to talk about some of the amazing work that she's doing on putting people first and how to manage sales, but you want to lead people. And if you're not sure what that means, you want to stay tuned for the full interview with Deb where we talk about this exact topic. So stay tuned on how to lead salespeople. Hi, Deb. How are you?
I'm good. It's wonderful to be here with you, Gene. Appreciate the opportunity.
It is great to have you here. I'm just excited to be able to talk to you about leadership and talk about sales and about kind of this where they fit together. Before we jump into it, Deb, tell our audience a little bit about you and who you serve.
Well, my company is People First Productivity Solutions, and we build organizational strength by putting people first. We do that through executive coaching, through team effectiveness, and through working with salespeople directly. So all the places where you see leaders in the trenches, we like to get right in there with them and help them to do a better job.
Well, I guess you relate to the name of the podcast.
Absolutely.
Being in the trenches.
Yes.
Some people think it's a bad thing, and I just see it as being on the front lines. And I heard a story years and years and years ago about what the CEO of Home Depot, and he said one of his favorite things to do was to put on his own orange vest and get out on the front lines. And I thought, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about people who are doing that.
Yeah. The title reminds me of the definition of leadership from Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner. Their definition is the art of mobilizing others to want to struggle for shared aspirations. Right? The want to struggle and the mobilizing and being in the trenches. You can certainly be more effective in having that kind of impact when you're right there with people.
Well, I'm going to tie onto that, because one of the things I say from the stage and I say in my work is leadership is not about getting people to do the work. It's about getting them to want to do the work.
Yes.
So, Deb, when you're putting people first, what are some of the key aspects of getting people to want to do the work?
Well, you nailed it. A couple of shows ago, you talked about employee engagement. And employee engagement really is the emotional commitment. People have to feel it. It's the emotional commitment. That's what causes them to apply additional discretionary effort. So to want to work, to want to be a part of something bigger, that inspires people. And it's up to leaders to choose the behaviors that let people see how they can be enlisted in that vision. So they can feel that sense of belonging. So it's more than just punching the clock and making the widgets today.
I know you're probably hearing the same thing on the front lines with people. It's like, how do we get people to go past just checking the box to actually going beyond and getting to the heart of it? So I'm going to ask you the same question I get all the time. How do you get people to go past checking the box?
You help them to see why. It's got to be the why of the work. And I don't mean just because you're going to keep your job, just because you're going to get the paycheck. Rational commitment's not what we're after here. But emotional commitment. Have you thought about telling people the mission and the vision of your company? And do you have a mission and a vision? I hope so. Like, why does your company exist? And what do you aspire to be and do in the world? And then everything cascades from there. So I want you to do the work, Gene. Then I say, Gene, I need you to do X, because that's how we're going to fill in the blank, whatever the mission or the vision is. We have to inspire people to want to struggle for something bigger than the work of today. That's just not exciting.
I want to share with you my mission, because you brought this up, and we're in similar worlds. So, we could work with the same clients in different ways. But I want to go ahead and share it with you and just have a conversation on that. How does that sound?
I'd love it.
So I've been working on it, and this is not me kind of, it is crazy big, but I see a world where everyone loves Mondays.
I love it. So I would call that a vision. I would call that a
Well,
vision because visions are aspirational. They might not ever come to be absolutely true,
yep.
but every single step toward that vision is a positive. There's no downside of moving toward everybody loving Mondays. Uh,
Well, I get more specific into the vision part, but just the whole fact of like, you know, I'm sure every boss, every leader has heard those things and heard the jokes and seen it on Facebook of, oh my gosh, it's Monday. I don't feel that. We're recording this on a Monday. There was not a single bit of today where I was like, I'm not ready for the week to start. I had a lot of things I wanted to get done. I know I'm making a difference. I knew I was going to be talking to you, Deb, and I was excited about what I'm doing. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
I do. You used my magic words, making a difference. Right? If I can, when I was in a sales career, as I work with leaders, when I feel like I can make a difference for someone, to me, that's the intrinsic motivation. That's what revs me up. And that's true for a lot of people. Right? When we can touch people with where they feel something, with what they value, with what they want to do in the world, then the rest of it's automatic. Yeah, they're going to love Monday and they're going to do the work and they're going to not even think about, hey, I just am here for the paycheck. So
Which is what all leaders want to hear.
yeah.
So I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the new book that's out. As we're recording this, it's pretty fresh, right? It will actually publish in July. So, but tell us about the book.
Yeah, the book is called Stop Selling and Start Leading. And it's based on research with buyers and stories from sellers. And it's also founded in 30 plus years of research from the 5 practices of exemplary leadership. That's Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner, my co-authors. And we took all of this research because we had a theory, a hypothesis that if sellers, frontline salespeople, if they would choose more frequently the behaviors of leaders, so put away the old salesy, stereotypical behaviors, and instead step into leadership with your buyers. We thought if that happened, it might make a difference for buyers and sellers, and it does. It's huge. So the whole book is about, as a seller, how can you step into your role leading buyers and guide them to a better place?
So now that we talked about the book, and if you guys want to get a copy of the book, it would be something that would help you and your teams. But Deb, I want to have just a personalized conversation with you for a moment around how do leaders get their salespeople, women, to be the leaders inside that sales role? What does it take in that leadership role for all that to come together?
Well, I think it probably goes without saying, but actions speak louder than words. So how are you going to model the way forward? Are you going to truly be a leader and demonstrate leadership behaviors? Let's start with the most basic one of all, which is DWYSYWD, D-W-Y-S-Y-W-D, right? Do what you say you will do, because your credibility as a leader is wrapped up in that. And if you want people to act as leaders, salespeople or anyone, if you want them to act as leaders, then be that example, be that role model for them, and don't risk your credibility by not doing what you say you will do. Credibility is the cornerstone of leadership, so just that one simple thing can make a difference.
Well, and that's a really good point, because there's a lot of sales leaderships that's maybe they've gone through it. They don't have to be on the front lines with these employees anywhere. And so they don't have to model it. But you're saying this is exactly the reason why you should, based on where we're going now and putting people first.
Yeah. You want to give people a sense of belonging. You want them to be engaged in the work and to have that emotional commitment and that passion even on a Monday. Then you're going to have to demonstrate that you have that. And you're going to have to connect with them enough that they know that this is a place where they do feel a sense of belonging and where they're valued, they're ennobled, what they do and who they are is worthy and important. All of that comes directly from the leader.
Deb, what are some of the things that get in the way of great leadership in the sales world?
One of the things that gets in the way of great leadership is great management. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're a sales manager. There are 2 parts to that job. The first part is selling, and maybe you focus a lot on that anyway, so then your job is blurred. The second part is managing. That's the numbers, and it's the quotas, and it's the getting today's work done today. but it doesn't say anything about the leadership, the inspiring of people, for example. So it's a good idea to manage sales and to lead people. Those aren't necessarily the same thing. They're not mutually exclusive. You can absolutely do both, but you have to be intentional about it. Don't let the day-to-day, the reactive, the here and now get in the way of your leadership.
That's a really good point about managing sales and leading people. Does that remind you of any kind of stories inside of the work that you're doing that you can share with us?
Yes, we could look straight down my client list. It reminds me of a lot of stories.
Okay.
Here's something, and this is beyond just sales managers. It's true for a lot of people as they ascend in an organization. The more functional capability you have, and the more you've been rewarded for your brilliance, your strategic ideas, and the things that you do for the company, and certainly as an owner, operator of a company, it's easy to fall into the trap of myths that say things like it's lonely at the top, or to think that leadership is somehow a solo act. And so a story that goes hand in hand with that is I'm working with someone who has really had a skyrocketing career. They've leapfrogged over a couple of positions, and they now find themselves in the number 2 seat. This is a guy who's only 43 years old, and it's a fairly good-sized organization. And along the way, he's been a doer. He's proven himself over and over and over again, and he's really smart. But he's never really had to develop the interpersonal skills. It's been his functional expertise and his knowledge that's gotten him where he is. And he's struggling. He's struggling now to mend relationships that he accidentally, inadvertently impaired along the way. And he's struggling to get those connections to really have the connections with people that would cause them to trust him to the ends of the earth, that would cause them to know that he has their back, that it's not just about him. His fast ascension made it seem like everything he was doing was self-serving. It wasn't, but it looks that way because people haven't seen anything else.
Yeah. In the moment of this interview to give you a message, because we've been working on something with our clients and it really is pretty exciting. I want to share with you about the culture scorecard. Specifically, it's called the Transformational Culture Scorecard. This will give you insight into where you are right now in 8 different areas of your business. We're going to go from mission down through sales and marketing to leadership and people and systems. There's 8 total areas that we're going to go through this. We're looking at them across your business, and you can find out where you score on this. So if you want to find out more about that specific to you, just go to genehammett.com/culture, and you can get the Transformational Culture Scorecard. All right, now back to the interview. Well, I appreciate you sharing that story with us. And I write all the time about a specific thing, and it becomes, I feel like, do I really need to write about this again? And your company being company people first, who else better to talk about this? But there's so many leaders that are going to put the numbers ahead of the people in an organization. I know you see this, and what's one of the first things that you ask that leader about them putting numbers before people?
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, I'll back up and give you a little context here.
Yeah.
I chose my company name and my philosophy very deliberately. I came from a Fortune 500, a corporate background. The company was going through a long, drawn-out sale. And it was a company where people were highly valued until this happened and the company was for sale. And suddenly it was all about profit. And it was all about products, and it was all about programs, and it was as if people were an afterthought. And it really did feel that way. So I set out to help companies rehabilitate themselves if they were losing sight of the fact that every single thing you want, including profit, it's only going to come if you have taken care of your people. And that doesn't mean in a patriarchal way. It means making sure that people feel good about the work that they're doing and that they're engaged and invested. So when I go into a company and begin to work with people, I just ask them, what's the cost? What's the cost of people leaving here as often as they do? What's the cost of the amount of people that are in HR complaining about the way that they're treated? What's the cost of people not being entirely engaged and only sometimes sort of lackadaisical and not fully there in the work that they're doing? And when they think about that, and there's research to back it all up, but I want them to have the first answer. When they think about it, pretty soon they can see that maybe there would be some merit to doing things differently.
Well, I want to go a little bit deeper with that because in all of my episodes, I have a practical and actionable. So if that is the question, what's the cost of lack of engagement and, complaining in HR and all the other things that we hear, how do you help clients see the cost of those things? Like, is there some kind of exercise you walk them through that can help them see it for themselves?
There is. Let me see if I can explain it reasonably well here without any slides, because it's a bit involved.
Yeah.
Peter Drucker was doing this 50, 60 years ago. So this is something that people can get to. It's a simple productivity formula. So whatever they tell me, when they finally decide what is the cost, and we're able to talk about whether it's the retention rate and the hiring, or whether it's the lack of productivity, because that stems from engagement too. When we find what it is, then I go out and I give them the research, because there's data for just about anything related to employee engagement. Give them the data, we run some numbers, we use even the formula that Drucker did if it's appropriate to productivity, and we can come up with a cost. There are things like, here, I'll give you some shortcut, simple ones. Things like the best leaders elicit 3 times the amount of talent and commitment from their employees versus leaders who have less engaged employees. So to be a good leader equals employee engagement equals 3 times the effort of people. Well, you tell me, take any one job. If somebody on the assembly line was applying 3 times the effort and your output increased, what does that mean in terms of numbers? Right, so there are complex ways, but there are also pretty simple ways that you can come at this.
Well, I appreciate that little exercise, because if anybody's looking at this, hopefully they'll be able to take that and start looking at the cost of these things inside their organization. So if our audience wanted to get in touch with you, Deb, what's the best place to point them to?
Go ahead and email me, Deb Calvert at peoplefirstps.com, because I really do enjoy conversations and follow-ups, and I'd be happy to talk with you more about these subjects. It's People First spelled out. PS stands for Productivity Solutions. You can find me online under the same handle, People First PS, and wherever we engage, I'm looking forward to that.
We'll put all those links inside the show notes here on the show. Thanks for being here and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you, Gene. You're doing great work here, and boy, leaders don't get nearly enough support, so I know that you're very much appreciated.
All right, fantastic episode. This is episode number 339. You're going to get the show notes and details at leadersinthetrenches.com/339. I am Gene Hammett. I'm your host today. Hopefully this kind of content is inspiring you to be an even greater leader than you already are, and really have more intention and insight around being a transformational leader inside your company. So if you're enjoying this content, make sure you reach out and tell me hi. If you have not downloaded the latest work that we're doing on culture, make sure you go to genehammett.com/culture, and it'll take you right into the transformational culture scorecard, where you can map yourself, see where you stand inside your culture and your leadership. All right. If you have any questions, make sure you reach out. And as always, lead with courage, and stay tuned next time.